You open your fridge at 7 p.m. The light flickers on. You've got 17 options. Chicken breast, Greek yogurt, a protein bar with ingredients you can't pronounce. You stand there, paralyzed by abundance, and eventually grab something wrapped in plastic. You don't think about where it came from. You don't think about who made it. You just eat. But for 99% of human history, there was no fridge. There was no grocery store. There was no breakfast food or dinner food or snack. There was only what you could find, kill, dig up, or steal from a predator before it noticed you. Think about this. Your ancestors, the same species as you, with the same brain, the same digestive system, the same hunger cues, spent roughly 300,000 years eating whatever the landscape provided. No farms, no factories, no nutrition labels telling them what was healthy. And here's what should stop you in your tracks. They were stronger than you, leaner than you. They had better teeth, better bone density, better eyesight. They worked about 15 to 20 hours a week to feed themselves, and then they were done. They didn't meal prep on Sundays. They didn't count macros. They didn't stress eat at midnight because a deadline was looming. We live in an era of infinite food choice, and somehow we're the most nutritionally confused, metabolically sick generation in human history. How does that happen? So what did they actually eat? What was on the menu for 300,000 years before agriculture showed up and rewired everything? The answer changes everything we think we know about food, health, and why your body feels like it's fighting you every time you try to eat clean. We're not a different species, but we live so differently from how humans lived for 99% of our existence that we might as well be. And the food on your plate tonight? It's part of the story, but it's not the whole story. Let's start with what the bones tell us.
Let's start with the bones, because bones don't lie about what you ate. In 2012, a team led by Miki Ben-Dor at Tel Aviv University analyzed nitrogen isotopes from the bones of ancient humans dating back 40,000 years. What they found was striking. The nitrogen signatures were nearly identical to top-level carnivores, not herbivores, not omnivores with a plant-heavy diet, predators. This is not an exaggeration. Your ancestors were eating large quantities of animal fat and protein, not as a side dish, as the main event. But here's what's fascinating. It wasn't just meat, it was fat. Specifically, the fatty parts that modern diet culture tells you to avoid. Bone marrow, brain tissue, subcutaneous fat from large mammals. At the Chesem Cave in Israel, roughly 400,000 years ago, researchers found hundreds of animal bones that had been systematically cracked open to extract marrow, not occasionally, habitually. This wasn't survival eating, this was preference. In 1999, Richard Wrangham at Harvard University published a game-changing hypothesis. He argued that cooking, specifically the control of fire, was the single most important dietary shift in human evolution. Not farming, fire. Wonderwork Cave in South Africa holds evidence of controlled fire use dating back roughly 1 million years. 1 million! That's not a typo. And when you cook food, everything changes. Starches become digestible, proteins break down, toxins in plants neutralize. Your gut shrinks because you don't need a massive fermentation chamber anymore. Your brain grows because you're suddenly absorbing way more calories with way less effort. A 2014 study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences calculated that a cooked diet provides about 30% more energy than the same food raw. Your ancestors didn't just stumble into better nutrition, they hacked it. But the most fascinating evidence comes from the people who are still living this way. In the 1960s, anthropologists studying the Zhuang-Hanzi Bushmen of the Kalahari Desert documented their daily food intake. The results shattered every assumption about primitive diets. They consumed over 100 different plant species, but animal foods provided the bulk of their calories. And here's the number that matters: about 15 to 20 hours per week spent on food procurement. The rest? Leisure, storytelling, rest, social bonding. More recent research on the Hadza of Tanzania, led by Herman Ponser at Hunter College, confirmed something similar. Using doubly labeled water techniques, the gold standard for measuring energy expenditure, Ponser found Hadza men and women burn roughly the same number of calories per day as sedentary Westerners. The difference isn't how much energy they use, it's what they use it on. Movement, foraging, carrying, processing, not sitting. So what was the actual menu? Large game when they could get it, small game when they couldn't. Fish where water was available, tubers, nuts, berries and honey and seasonal plants, insects, bone marrow, organs, and almost none of it was processed, refined, or stored long-term. But here's the key. It wasn't just what they ate, it was how they ate it. They ate together, they ate slowly, they ate what was available when it was available, and they stopped when they were full. There was no cheat day, there was no diet industry. There was only the landscape, the season, and the group. And that group, that circle of safety, that was the original kitchen table.
So, let's reconstruct the meal. Not the idea of it, the actual experience. You wake up around dawn. The air is cold. You didn't sleep through the night. Nobody does. But you drifted off again after the last watch ended. Your stomach isn't growling yet. It will, but not with the urgency you feel now. Hunger comes slower when you haven't trained your blood sugar to crash every 3 hours. You move with the group. The older woman in front spots tracks. Fresh. A kudu passed here before sunrise. The hunt begins, but it's not dramatic. It's patient, quiet. You walk for hours, scanning, listening. Your feet know this ground, every rock, every thorn bush. About 4 to 6 hours later, if you're lucky, there's meat. If not, you dig. You find tubers, tough, fibrous, slightly bitter. You don't eat them raw, you can't. Your gut isn't built for that anymore. You bring them back to the fire that never fully goes out. Someone has been tending it since before you were born. By late afternoon, the temperature drops. The sun sits heavy and orange on the horizon. You eat what the day provided. A handful of berries, some honey if someone found a hive and smoked out the bees, a piece of liver from yesterday's kill still wrapped in leaves. You don't have a plate. You don't have a schedule. You have this circle, this fire, and the sound of chewing mixed with storytelling. There is no clean eating. There is no guilt. There is only enough or not enough. And when there is enough, there is laughter. When there is not enough, there is silence. But even the silence is shared. Then, about 10,000 years ago, something changed. Agriculture arrived, and agriculture is a trap. It looks like freedom from starvation, but it's actually a contract. You were locked in. You stopped moving. You started storing. You traded 100 foods for 3: wheat, rice, corn. The calories were reliable, but the nutrition was narrow. Your bones got shorter. Your teeth got crowded. Your jaw shrank. You started working 40, 50, 60 hours a week to feed yourself because one crop failure meant death. You didn't choose this. No one voted. It was just more calories per square foot, and more calories meant more babies, and more babies meant you needed even more calories, and suddenly you couldn't go back. The wild was still there, but you weren't wild anymore. You were owned by the harvest. And here's what your body still doesn't understand. Your brain is still running software designed for a world that no longer exists. That craving for sugar, it was supposed to lead you to a beehive once a year. Now it leads you to a vending machine at 2 a.m. That urge to eat until you're stuffed, it made sense when the next meal was uncertain. Now it just makes you sick. That instinct didn't vanish. It just found new targets. You still want to eat in a circle. You still want to eat slowly. You still want variety, seasonality, the surprise of finding something good. But instead, you eat alone, fast,
from a box while staring at a rectangle of light, and your body is confused. It thinks it's starving while it's drowning in calories. This is not an exaggeration.
So here's the truth. Your body remembers a world that disappeared before your great-great-great-grandparents were born, and it never got the memo. You count calories. They counted on the land. You read labels. They read tracks. You meal prep on Sunday to survive the week. They woke up and walked into abundance or scarcity, and either way, they were present for it. You gather around a screen. They gathered around a fire. You eat to fuel productivity. They ate because they were alive. You worry about cholesterol. They worried about the dry season. You scroll to feel connected. They told stories to actually be connected. We traded freedom for food security, leisure for population growth, time for productivity. We traded the marrow bone for the protein bar. We traded the circle for the cubicle. We traded knowing exactly what we were eating for the convenience of never having to think about it at all. And every time you feel that strange, hollow craving at 10 p.m., the one that no snack seems to fill, your body isn't broken, it's homesick. We're not a different species, but we live so differently from how humans lived for 99% of our existence that we might as well be. Your ancestors didn't need to become successful. They were already living the life you're working your entire existence to retire into. They didn't need a diet. They needed the rain to come close. They didn't need discipline. They needed the herd to pass close to camp. And when the food was there, they ate it with their hands, with their people, with the full knowledge of exactly what it was and exactly where it came from. The past isn't gone, it's just buried under progress. If this changed how you see your next meal, save this and watch it again in a year. You'll hear something completely different. Your ancestors survived 300,000 years without a nutrition label, and somehow they were okay. I'll see you in the next one, and until then, remember where you came from.